Hey YouTube, this is Southern Purple One. Laying in bed, and I got to thinking about how in the world did we get started in this conflict. Just thought, man, seemed like cooler heads could prevail. We could have sat down with Russia and resolved things peacefully. Now, Russia has definitely felt threatened, and rightfully so. We definitely gave them some promises that we wouldn't expand NATO to their border, and as you know, we're doing that. And I always try to put myself in the other person's shoes. So what would I do if I was a Russian, or if I was a Russian leader? How would I feel? So we did not stop the expansion of NATO. We put it on their borders. After they invaded, we put sanctions on oil, on everything. So that hurt them financially. That's economic warfare. We froze a lot of their money internationally, so they don't have access to it. We put some bans on their travel, so their commercial airliners couldn't travel to other countries. We definitely stole property from Russian citizens. Boats, ships, apartments, planes, houses all over the world. We stole that, confiscated it, and didn't even have any sense of a trial or fairness. Before the war, we had advisors in there. We were training the Ukrainian military. After they invaded, I truly believe 100% that we still have advisors there. We definitely have some there on the success of the battlefield and how it's going. They're getting intel, they're getting a lot of command and control, and that's for sure. Going to them targeting generals. Now the Pentagon says they're not targeting generals, but I think there's 10, 11, 12, maybe up to 12, I'm not sure. There's a huge amount of officers at a high level that have been killed. This is no coincidence. It is definitely a plan. The ship that was attacked and sunk, there is no way the Ukrainians did that on their own. With the targeting, the intel, the equipment, the training, that was definitely, we had our hands in it, NATO had their hands in it, that is for sure. Then you take all the unexplained explosions and fires and damage their military and their civilian infrastructure, be it any type of logistical that will support the war. That's not coincidence. We probably had our hands in that also. We have also pushed a huge amount of NATO and Western forces right on their border. So that is definitely not helping the situation. The amount of war materials that we're putting in there and the training, all of this adds up to what we're doing is definitely an act of war. I mean, if you can prove that we used our intelligence and our intelligent assets to help Ukraine target that ship, that's an act of war. That's an active participant in the war. You can say supplying all of the equipment that is killing Russian soldiers is an act of war. So what I'm getting at is we are full speed. Even our leadership has said that they want this thing sort of to continue so we can further weaken Russia. They should be saying, we want this to end quickly to save lives and to get to the negotiation table. I think Ukraine should have gone to the negotiating table. I think they're going to be losers overall. I think they're going to lose more territory. Their country's destroyed, their infrastructure is destroyed. And then look at what's happening globally because of the supply chain problems, because of the food problems. A lot of people all over the world, Africa, all over the world, will suffer with a lack of food. That's a fact. And the food that is going to be out there is going to be so much more expensive. It's going to push it out of the reach of the poorest in the world. So there's lots of things that they're going to add up. When I wish they would have sat down at the table and negotiated this out. It seems like we didn't want to do that. It seems like we couldn't give some reassurance that NATO would not expand right into Ukraine, right on the border. So put yourself in Russia's position. They definitely felt threatened. They definitely felt like the United States, NATO, and the West didn't honor their obligations to not bring NATO on their border, and it has. Look at Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland. We have just totally expanded over there. So, are we in a proxy war with Russia? Probably. Anytime we have a conflict in the world, the other side always does what we're doing. If you look at Afghanistan, if you look around all over where there's a conflict, the other side helps whoever we're fighting, or we help whoever they're fighting. But the problem is, we're at the point now where it's just not a far place that we're fighting over. It is next to Russia. Russia feels 100% that they're being threatened. The homeland, their motherland, whatever you want to call it. And they take that serious to the point of, hey, we're going to use nuclear weapons. We don't mind using biological. We don't mind using chemicals. So as this war drags on, what is the policy of the U.S.? Do we want to just extend it so long we weaken them? But in the process of us weakening them, we are sending so much more materials over there. And stingers and javelins are being used up. It takes a while to replace those. I think I read it's 200 little chips in, I think, a javelin or a stinger. I'm not sure. But it was unbelievable the amount of things that we're going to have to rebuild these things. So, are we trying to extend it, to weaken them to a point where they're not a viable threat to us? But they will be. Their conventional forces might not be, but their nuclear forces will be. As we use up our equipment, excuse me, at a high rate. You know, the war's only been going on for like 3 months. What if it extends another 3 months, another 6 months, another year? How much more will we have depleted? And China is sitting over there happy as can be. The U.S. is using up their equipment. They're getting a lot of intel, how the Russians are fighting, how the Ukrainians are fighting, so they can use that in their battle plans. I heard there's a lot of problems in China regarding a power struggle in the Communist Party. And I think the election, don't hold me to this, I think it is in November. So really nothing might happen till after November, until that election in the Communist Party is taken care of. So if that's the case, we have some time. But China can do whatever they want. We are tied up. If this thing goes on another 6 months to a year, and at the rate of us giving away valuable equipment, we're not going to be able to fight a two-front war. There's no possibility. We will run out of equipment, and we do not have the logistical support to do that. So, the question is, are we at war with Russia? We sort of are, and they can interpret that, and they could retaliate at any time. So just keep prepping. Do what you can do to educate people about this. Do what you can do to prepare. If you have the ability to contact anyone in the government, be a legislator, and get their ear, tell them we don't appreciate that. We do not want to have a nuclear war. It would be counterproductive to what we need. We are physically broke, but that might be another reason the government is pushing a war. If they push a war, and we get a war, maybe not a full nuclear war, it's a distraction. A total distraction from the economic chaos. And the powers that be do not want to take blame for an economic meltdown. So if they can use a war, if they can use another outside force and say, oh, this is the reason, they're already pushing the narrative that the inflation is caused by Putin. And that's not correct. Inflation is caused by increasing the money supply. The money supply 2 years ago, I think in 2020, was expanded at a rate unseen, unheard of. The expansion I think would justify a 40% inflation rate because of all the goods and services that are out there, and we created this huge amount of money out of thin air. I could see 40% inflation to keep up with the money they created and the amount of supplies that are out there to buy, things to buy. So just keep prepping. Our government is pushing us towards war. They're not putting the brakes on it. They're encouraging it. So keep prepping and praying. Thanks for watching.